This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. This is your Happy New Year show. Also, your AEW Worlds End results show. On today's show, we're going to break down that pay-per-view. We're going to take a look at what's going on with AEW. I think some good things. I do think some good things. A lot of stuff going on with WWE that we got to tackle, as well as can we see this wrestling star soon? And WWE dealing with multiple shoulder injuries. Help me tackle this wrestling program, taking the steel chair to the wrestling industry. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Cuz, I'm so happy we're talking after Smackdown. Listen, there's not too many times where you're like, all right, I'm just going to sit down and see what a new show looks like. Smackdown went to 3 hours. I was thrilled. It was a good show in my opinion, and it just leads to my real simple opinion for 2026. I think that call-ups got to happen faster. I think development for a lot of these guys, and I get it, Trick Williams and Obafemi, they cooked in NXT and there's a formula, but I wonder if they could do it just a little faster. Like every 6 to 8 months, you refreshen everything. You get new characters. That's the lifeblood of wrestling, is a little bit of newness. And that third hour, many of us were like, oh man, it's going to suck. Smackdown was awesome. It just flowed. There was new things going on. There was new intrigue. And unfortunately, in 2025, I think that for the better part of 6 months, and a lot of these wrestling companies are getting into this where you just have the same wrestlers and they're just mixing stories. Freshness was amazing. And I can't wait to recap the pay-per-view from AEW. And I'm just excited. It's a new year. And I hope that new creative for both companies and TNA makes it so much better, because I was really excited after watching SmackDown.
Yeah, let's save the best for last. We'll finish with SmackDown. Let's start with last weekend with World's End. We had a lot going on, and there's a lot of stuff that kind of comes out of this. So I think there's a lot of good going on with AEW right now. There's some things that really do confuse me, and let's kick the show off with the Continental Classic semifinals. Okada ends up defeating Takeshita to advance in the finals. Now, in the match, there's no outside interference. However, Okada ends up using a screwdriver behind the ref's back to get the win. That continues that feud. I'm cool with that. Our next match is another part of the Continental Classic semifinals. Moxley ends up defeating Kyle Fletcher to advance in the finals. It really appears as though Moxley's turning babyface. We'll get to a little bit more of this when we get to the finals match and what takes place after. But was this the right move? Was it the right move to have Moxley defeat Fletcher? Fletcher's a guy who you and I both have pegged as being a monster star in AEW. Fletcher is a guy who both of us feel the creative and the programming of television needs to be built around. And he's a guy who feels like his ceiling is limitless. Now, Moxley, 2025 was an interesting year. It was one where you've seen the advancement of the story of the Death Riders, and then that story advanced for way too long. It felt like it just took forever. And the crowd started to turn on the Death Riders. And it was one of those things like, okay, when are we moving to the next part? It just felt like the story got stale. Jon Moxley, trying to reinvent the story, ends up taking a bunch of losses. Somehow he finds his way into the semifinals, and now he's finding himself in the finals. But was it right to have Fletcher take this loss, or should you have built it up to be Fletcher, Okada, and possibly put Fletcher over as the winner in the finals?
Listen, I thought it was all good. I thought I would have wanted Takeshita to kind of get a little bit of a push, but here's the thing. The Continental Classic was real interesting, and the whole purpose was to kind of get Moxley into a new form, a new version of himself. So in that sense, I thought Fletcher held himself pretty well. And in the end, I think that they are taking the approach that, okay, we're going to put him in some good matches, and in the end, 2026 is going to be his year. And in this story, I think Moxley getting it makes sense. I get it. He's over. He's somebody that could potentially, you tell his story of, hey, this was some guy that was battling in a group, and he's been this way, and now he cuts a promo, and now he's a face. I get it. I think that you're right. There's an argument to be made that Fletcher maybe would have benefited most from this kind of tournament where you kind of get a little bit of a rub. And it's like Money in the Bank. Really, in the end, the Continental Classic is a tournament. It's tournament style. But most people kind of feel like it equates to a Money in the Bank. Like, who's next? And Moxley has kind of been there and done that. Like, doesn't need it. But I thought the Continental Classic, in totality, outside of us from telling like, okay, what does this mean for a story? I thought the matches were pretty good. I thought that tournament style, like if you're trying to be like in Japan, like you and Kenny would always tell me, well, watch the G1. It's pretty interesting. It is. And there's not really a whole heck of a lot of stories. It's just a tournament. And in the end, Jon Moxley deserves once in a while to have some shine too. So Jon Moxley wins it. I'm cool. Now I'm a little intrigued by what's going to be next for him.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we'll pick up with what takes place with Dynamite is what's next for him. Our next match was the AEW World Tag Team Championship. It was a Chicago street fight. FTR ends up defeating the Bang Bang Game to retain their titles. Our next match was the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship match. Look, no surprise here. Babes of Wrath, I think they're fantastic. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron end up defeating Mercedes Moné and Athena to retain their titles. We then had a bloody match. It was a lot of gore. Darby Allin ends up defeating Gabe Kidd. I felt like at this moment in time, the crowd started to wane a little bit.
Yes.
Started to maybe get a little bit tired. So you kind of get into a weird spot at this point. Some of these pay-per-views are just so damn long, and sometimes you just don't need all the blood and guts. You know what I'm saying? So our next match was a mixed nuts mayhem match. Tony Storm, Roderick Strong, Orange Cassidy, and Mark Briscoe end up defeating the Death Riders, Marina Shafir, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta. I think the interesting thing coming out of this, and I did not know this until I was putting this show together, and I was reading a couple of different things online, specifically in regards to this match. But Roderick Strong and Marina Shafir are a couple.
Yeah, right?
That?
Right.
And they end up trading blows in this match, which is absolutely nuts to me. I didn't know that.
I did not either. Same thing. I said, wait a minute. It's kind of interesting that most of the time we think of couples being aligned. It's kind of fun to see them fight each other. It's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, no, most definitely. It's never in a million years did I think those two were married and were a couple. But yeah, I mean, in like you said, most of the time you see them, it's something like you get with like Aleister Black and Zelina Vega, where they're working together. In this case, one's a face, one's a heel, and they end up fighting each other in this match, which I thought was really, really cool. The thing that was different was that commentary did not lean into it at all. Right. Which, good on commentary, trying to keep the story straight and keep everything going. So good on them. Our next match was the AEW Women's World Championship match. Chris Statlander ends up defeating Jamie Hayter to retain the title. And that brings us to our finals of the Continental Classic. Jon Moxley ends up defeating Okada to win the AEW Continental Championship. Now, a couple of things here. Jon Moxley only won one belt. Do you remember a little bit ago, they had two belts that were merged into one, and it was supposed to be the Continental International Championship? Here's the deal. The Continental Championship was the only thing that was up for grabs here. The International Championship is still around Okada's waist. For some reason, they had a match to put these two belts together, and then when this started, they separated those two belts again. Almost like two halves of the Power Sword and the keys to Castle Grayskull. I don't know why they did this. I have no idea why they did this, but we now have an additional belt floating around as they unmerged the two belts. What are your thoughts on one, unmerging the belts? It's something we talked about earlier when this whole thing kicked off, because we were like, what is going on? And we weren't really sure how it was going to all play out, but it is now final. Jon Moxley is the holder of the AEW Continental Championship, while Okada holds the International Championship belt. They split the belts again. Why? We have too many belts. What are we doing? Right.
My note for this, when I was looking at it and the result was, this is in line with Scott Steiner coming out and explaining this tournament. Well, what you have is the Continental belt, which went into one belt. Now it was two belts. Then it got merged to three, but then it gets to be one. So if I win the belt, then I'm the 2/3 champion. And then if I don't win the belt, then I'll give one back. And if I end up becoming the champion for more than a year, it becomes 4 belts. And you understand that I can be the champion and have all of the Continental belts. And then it's just like, come on, dude. I can't even understand the lineage of they split it, they had it, they split it, they had it. It's like, come on, dude. It's just it's it's unrealistic to try and even figure out the lineage of this. It's stupid, in my opinion. Listen, I don't need an Intercontinental Europe belt. I don't need an Intercontinental Asia belt. I just need a Continental Championship. Like, dude, it's simple. Like, WWE, they go to Saudi Arabia, they have a belt, and you win it. Like, can't AEW just create a super mega belt for the Continental Champion, and you're just the champion, you're known as that for the year, you get a nice big ring or nice big trophy. Like, what happened to the big 20-foot trophy? Use a trophy and some pyro and some confetti. Like, it makes no sense because we talk about it all the time. You and I care. Like, you can't cheapen belts. Like, and first of all, I'm at the very basic level. I'm a simpleton. I can't understand the lineage of the belt. Like, okay, Okada's this version of that version. I stopped caring. So that is my opinion of it, is that there's something Continental going on, and at one point there could be one version of it, two versions of it. Listen, man, this is some easy stuff. The Continental Tournament winner gets a fat belt that he can carry around for that night and for the next Dynamite. And then you put it away. And you just talk about the lineage of this year you won this and this year you won that. But yeah, exactly. Like, now when Okada goes on to fight somebody, it doesn't mean that they get over or they won shit. It just means, like, what version of this belt did they get? It's stupid. It's just stupid and confusing.
Yeah, it's to me, it just kind of makes things really, really muddy, and there's no point for it. It's not necessary. I don't understand why you do it. Again, we don't need all these belts. Ugh. I feel like the less belts you have, it makes the belts more important. I feel like AEW really waters down. Look, they have great talent. They have fantastic talent. You, me, and Kenny were having a conversation about AEW and all the talent that they have. They've got so much, and it really feels like it makes them less special because you have all these watered down championships. I don't understand it. I think specifically in this match, though, coming out of it, it felt like we were going to get a turn on Jon Moxley. It felt like Jon Moxley, who cuts this impassioned promo, and he really leans into this babyface nature of himself. Next thing you know, you've got all of the Death Riders coming down to the ring, and it felt like they were about to throw his ass out of the group and turn on him, but they didn't. Was it a missed opportunity not to lean into that moment? Because I felt like that right there was the Sentio moment that it should have happened. It would have added some context, would have added some storyline, and it would have been something that for you to kick off whatever this Jon Moxley run is, it would have basically lit a firecracker underneath it and sent it to the moon. What were your thoughts on them not turning on Jon Moxley in that moment?
Yeah, I said in the group chat, it's a wasted opportunity. They should have whooped his ass. Like, you have your leader turning on you, and he's been losing. He's cost you some respect and cachet, and you just allow it to happen. It was a wasted opportunity, and I just think that it's wild too, because Tony Khan did a 2-hour podcast with SI's Takeaway Wrestling program website. It's interesting, but he's kind of become now more of the central booker and not using as many guys and ideas. Listen, I think the problem is that he started with like 10 guys giving him ideas, and now it's basically one. And I just think that you need one other person in the room to bounce an idea off of, where you go, okay, Jon Moxley wins. What should we do? And I think that with a collaborative effort with one other person that you like, you could have came to, oh yeah, we need to have, the heels versus the face, and boom, we kick it off with a little bit of a brawl, or at least a little bit of a, hey, you made the wrong choice, your life is different now, and be aware. Like, one of the guys could have just been Pac or Claudio Castagnoli could have been like, you made your bed, now lie in it, be aware. And it's something impactful, bold, storyline wise. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You're right. They just chose to stay with, this is the moment. Moxley is now the face.
Yeah, and I just
wasted opportunity
again. Yeah, exactly. It just, you could have done something a little bit different. You could have did something a little bit better, and yet you didn't, and that's where we were. Now that leads us to our World Championship match. You've got MJF taking on Samoa Joe, Hangman Page, Swerve Strickland. Samoa Joe is your champion, so he's defending his title in a fatal 4-way. MJF ends up getting the win here. I guess the big question I have is, why? And I don't feel like Samoa Joe can ever be taken serious as a heavyweight champion
Right.
again. He had a 34-day run. It was a whole lot of nothing. He was completely a transitional champion. And to me, I don't know if MJF was the best choice to put the belt on here. You have Hangman Page, who is probably the hottest he's ever been, and Swerve Strickland, as hot as he's ever been. And you have a returning MJF who's been in the company for, checks watch, I don't know, 10 days. And this is kind of where we're at. And again, completely devalues Samoa Joe. Like, we laugh when Samoa Joe wins titles now because he's not relevant. You can't take him serious because of how they book him. What were your thoughts on MJF coming out the champion? And Samoa Joe can never be taken seriously as a champion ever again, correct?
Yeah, it's really pointless. It really is pointless. But the fact of the matter is, it really does encapsulate the fact that AEW didn't have a real plan for Hangman. They give him the belt, but there's really nobody believable for him to fight other than Samoa Joe. That's even close to main event-ish in that company. So you should have never had it. Paige should have held on to it. Listen, I know the whole once every 30, 60-day thing, but sometimes there's just nobody there. You just give opportunities, and sometimes you just do what you got to do. But yeah, having Samoa Joe win it, I felt like was really stupid in the end if you're going to have MJF do it. I think MJF, it would have been more impactful if he beats Adam Hangman Page, but you needed a heel. You needed a feud for Adam Hangman Page because of where MJF was at, but it makes no real logical sense storyline-wise because you go, okay, one, you cheapen the belt. Okay, let's go down that road. Two, you cheapen Samoa Joe. Yeah, let's go down that road where the second time he wins a title, it means nothing. It's really weird. Like, are you just wanting to get his resume to say two-time AEW champion? But people are going to say, well, yeah, but both of his runs were god-awful. It was like you made him a television champion and he just showed up with a belt and was like, I'm the champ. There's no meaning behind it. There's no force behind it. That's what the purpose of a belt is. But to your point, when you have all this talent and you have 99 people on your roster and 96 of them have belts, it doesn't mean anything. So now moving forward, you understand. MJF is the biggest star in the company. He should be the champion. But along the way, the belt that he just won means jack shit. So I hope that moving forward that they tell some stories so that MJF can be there for a year and he just needs a belt for a year, win some matches, have a nice feud with Hangman, have another match with Joe, have some stories with it so that the belt can have some meaning. Whatever MJF won, it was just, well, he's there. It's cool. He can wrestle. He's a badass. He's a total package. But along the way, this equates in my book, in a notebook, it's like he won the television title. That's just the lack of relevancy based on what you did with that belt.
Yeah, and that's it right there. There's
means shit. Doesn't mean anything
about his run. Like, it doesn't make, I don't know, man. It doesn't make any sense. Were you excited to see MJF walk out of this match with the title? Like, was that the best choice? Because I feel like you could have done a little bit more with a guy like Page, and I feel like putting it on Swerve would have been incredible. Because, like, I don't know, man. Swerve's just got this thing about him. Like, he enters the arena and the arena's roof is ready to blow. And he's come back. He's in such great shape. He looks absolutely incredible. I felt like Swerve might have been the best choice to go with here.
It's interesting, yeah, because of the fact of what he's been through and the star caliber. But I think that you just also, moving forward, you can have a nice opportunity to have him do a feud. MJF, to me, the total package. I mean, when he's in the ring, the belt should always be on the guy that when he comes out gets the biggest pop, is the most over, and in the end, he's just the biggest star. People want to see him. Like, when his music comes out, you feel something, you care about him. He's a champion, and I do think that the next run for these guys is to give MJF a story. It's not about who has the belt. It's about, do I care about the challenger? Do I get pumped up? Swerve is a guy. He's made. But you got to also make him have good matches with MJF. You got to have him tell good stories. And can we get a little bit more Nana? What happened to Nana? Is he on retirement? Get back to Nana. Like, also, too, Nana is pretty sweet. So I'm hoping that in 2026, the guys that were at the top, the Samoa Joes, the Hangman Page, and the Swerves, kind of get in a way where their stories get told a little bit so they can be a little bit more believable as relevant champions.
Now, it's interesting you say that because MJF on Dynamite cuts a promo. We're going to get to that here in a moment. Real quick, we look at calling the card. We end up splitting the points. I still have a 4 point lead on you, 12-8. So still plenty of time for you to catch up and cut that lead at least in half. But like I said, MJF comes out, cuts a promo. And I thought it was a really good promo. I think MJF looks great. He's got his beard. He's got his hair done a little bit of a different way. I think this is a nice refresh for MJF. Now, the thing that was interesting about this promo is he ends up with all sorts of challengers that interrupted it. You had a guy like Kenny Omega interrupt it. You had a guy like Swerve and Hangman. They came out together and interrupted it. You had Samoa Joe interrupt it. He has all kinds of challengers. And more to your point, it's more of here's MJF with the belt. Put us in a program with somebody and let this be interesting. Who do you want to see the most interesting program with MJF to have?
Right? It's wild, right? The stars. I mean, I want them all. I hope in the next year, Takeshka. I hope that you get a chance to see Adam Hangman Page again. Like you said, Swerve. Samoa Joe probably back of the line. I think that his time is like more. He needs to get into a different program, different type stuff. So I just think that there's great opportunities. There's great opportunities now for MJF to make new people. And I think the name that we talked about earlier, I think there's money to be made with Fletcher. I think that he could be the rising person. MJF's cutting a promo, and obviously the name that everybody's wondering about when he comes back, maybe it's going to be in August, is Will Ospreay. I'm hoping that his injury kind of heals up and whatever he's going through, he's a star. So there's a lot of good stuff for MJF to dig his teeth into and to be able to have I'll even say just even to make some stars. Ricochet has a chance, young stars, young people just to get matches. So there's plenty of opportunity to make some people here, but MJF needs to win all these matches and he's got to actually make that belt relevant again. And I think that what's interesting is that in the end, I do think in this run, you go through them all. I think that MJF should go through everybody. Moxley, Swerve, Samoa Joe, go through them all, and let's have some opportunity here to make this belt really important. Good matches, and if you're not going to do stories, then you just go one by one. Okada, I think there's great matches to be had with a lot of the top end roster, and I can't wait to see how it shakes out. But please, this is a run that needs to be at least 250 days, or maybe even to the next year. To the next year, you got a run.
The one thing I want to see come out of this run with MJF is I would love to see him make Kenny Omega a little bit more relevant.
Yeah.
I feel like Kenny Omega, he ended up getting hurt, got injured, went away, and then when he came back, he just hasn't really been all that relevant. I would love to see Kenny Omega become more relevant coming out of this. So that's the one thing I'm hoping that we get out of this run with MJF and Kenny Omega throwing himself into the mix. The other thing that I want to bring up is I thought Dynamite was incredibly enjoyable. I thought it was a very good show coming off of a pay-per-view that was a little bit weird and a pay-per-view that I don't think was necessarily well received. I thought Dynamite was very well done. And I thought that AEW did a great job closing the show as Willow Nightingale dethrones Mercedes Moné as the TBS champion. And here's the thing. One, you're trying to recapture that fire that you had with somebody like Willow Nightingale. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think AEW realized that they messed up with Willow Nightingale, and now they're trying to get it all back. So now she's a double champ. She's your tag team champ. She's your TBS champ. She's going to do double duty. You're going to see a lot of her. She's fantastic. Crowd absolutely loves her. She defeats Mercedes Moné, which I think continues that storyline. Remember, the Mercedes Moné thing was she was the belt collector. She had like 14, 15 titles. Her titles are now dwindling. She's going to start to spiral. I think that's a fantastic storyline for Mercedes Moné. They built it up, and now it's starting to come undone at the seams. I think that's great. I think you did the right thing, pulling the trigger on New Year's Eve with this storyline. I thought this was a great way to end the year. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. So you kick the show off with MJF and your new champion, and basically him having all these conversations with all these guys who want his belt. And I think that sets up an interesting 2026. You now dethrone Mercedes Moné, and that sets up an interesting storyline for her. And now you're strapping a rocket to Willow Nightingale's back. I thought the way they orchestrated Dynamite was so well done. I thought they did such a great job. The only thing that overshadowed Dynamite was a fantastic Smackdown by WWE. I thought AEW did a great job. I thought Dynamite was a much better program than Monday Night Raw. And I felt like Dynamite, if it had an extra hour, you could have put some extra stuff in there. It might have been just as good as SmackDown, but SmackDown was a fantastic show, like you said. Let's jump into some WWE stuff because there's a lot to unpack here. We're going to start with Raw. All right, Jimmy and Jay, they're your new tag team champs. We talk about short runs. We just got done talking about Samoa Joe and his 34-day run. Was this too short of a run for AJ Styles and Dragon Lee as your tag team champs? Now, I know it was a group that was just thrown together. It was one of those things where you're like, okay, I don't know how these two guys are going to work out. What you ended up getting was some fantastic chemistry inside the ring. And I think I wanted it to last a little bit longer. Jimmy and Jay being your new tag team champs as we head into 2026, to me, felt like you pulled the trigger a little bit too soon on AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. What did you think about Jimmy and Jay being crowned your new tag team champs on Raw?
Yeah, I agree, but I do think that they're transitioning now to, if this is the last year, maybe last 3 months of AJ Styles, you want to start telling that story. So it was a good run, and I do think that the Usos are probably, when you look at it, the best team to represent the tag team division, and it'll be a nice story arc moving forward. But yeah, you're right. That's the mark of a team that really left a mark quickly that gets put together is you want to see more. And it was sweet. It was a nice run. And it was cool kind of a little bit to see the Usos kick out of the Styles Clash and end up winning it. And they got a nice pop, so it'll be a nice start to the year for hopefully for the tag teams. I do think that my note for 2025 was the tag teams weren't as good on both sides as they could be, but started to turn around with AJ Styles and Dragon Lee holding the belts. And now let's see what the Usos do.
Yeah, we'll see what the Usos do, and I think you're right. You're looking to set AJ Styles up for whatever his retirement is. So here we go. We'll see where we go with that. We then transition into, because Raw for me was kind of a nothing show. It was whatever, right? We jump into SmackDown, which I think, like you said, was incredible. I'll be honest with you. We got to about 10:05, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm tired. I'm ready for this to be over. But then they gave you a little bit more, and then they got me interested. And again, it was a very, very good show. If I wasn't so sick and I wasn't so tired, I think I would have enjoyed this program that much more. It was a very, very good SmackDown. And we basically kick it off with Randy Orton coming back after 3 months away, and he respectfully wants to face Cody Rhodes as well as Sami Zayn does. So we've got Randy back. He lays out the Miz. And as he's walking through the back later on in the program, he runs into Cody and is like, hey, I'm coming for your belt. Sami Zayn comes out, cuts a promo. Trick Williams interrupts him. We're going to talk about Trick Williams here in a minute. Later on in the show, he's in the back with Cody Rhodes and basically says the same thing. I respectfully want your title. Everybody's coming for Cody's title. Who are you most interested in seeing? Randy or Sami Zayn get the shot to dethrone Cody Rhodes? Or maybe it's neither of them.
No, it's neither of them. I think that the show was so great because it was fresh. And you got to see Jordan Grace, Trick Williams. I think, Trick Williams comes out, and if you could say this is how you marinate a star, he comes out.
He felt big time.
Dude.
He felt huge.
And he is huge. Now, I'm not all into the white feather outfits, but you know what? He explained, he's like, I can take off all this, and I'm 6'5", 250, and I'm about to whoop your... He just looks the part. And let's go. I think that, the new stars are going to have a nice impact. And what's crazy is that, we live in such a fast-paced society that these guys are cooking 3-4 years. And a guy like Lexus King is getting ripped online because they're like, you've been in developmental for like 4 years. And he's like, listen, every day is a day to develop, but it's done perfectly. You get experience, you get multiple runs. Trick Williams going to TNA. He grabbed the mic and was just flowing. And it was amazing. No errors, no nothing. It was just, he was a superstar. And I guess that's the formula is to, guess what? Practice your craft, practice it over and over, practice it in the minors. And then when you show up on your main roster debut, you're just a star. because he is a star. So I want to see Trick get put a rocket ship. Matt Cardona was back. It was awesome. I want to see all the new guys. Matt Cardona get a shot. I just want to see, listen, I know now that Cody has a story with Drew, but a couple like in between stories with Randy, throw in a match with Matt Cardona against Cody Rhodes, like just some championship opportunities, just to say, hey, just to John Cena said, I want you to hear the noise challenge. Like, here's an open opportunity, not an open challenge, but hey, I want competition, whatever you want to call it, and I want to just face the best. And it could be Matt Cardona, Trick Williams. It's just great, man. It was awesome. I was excited all the way through it. It was cool. And I just felt like when you inject the nuclear heat that you did with Drew McIntyre, oh my God, that's how you tell stories. I just wish that a lot of these guys would get a story like they're just now telling with Drew and with Cody, man. It was awesome because they're like, you literally burned the picture with the man's dad. It's pretty emotion invoking to do something like that on television. But in the end, I thought it would have been cool. Let Cody hit him. And just go, oh no, what does this mean? And then you get Drew going, you got to take the belt off him. He's really excited. And then Nick Aldis goes, you know what? I've seen things in the past. I understand, maybe reference the fact that Nick did fight Cody in the past somehow or another. I understand, but my guy Cody, he's done some things for me. I've been in a situation with Cody. I don't care about the rules. And then just something where Cody should have just popped him one. That would have been sweet. What does that mean? What does that mean? And just say, we don't care what it means. We're not going to follow this stipulation and make it a punishment for Drew. And so, I don't know. It was awesome. I love SmackDown top to bottom. It just was amazingly well done. And in the end, you had a crazy match, an ambulance match, which had some high spots, and Aleister Black just like, yeah, throw my body into glass, throw me off the thing, whatever. Aleister Black was like, okay, this is the year I got to kind of show people I can wrestle and take bumps. Holy cow. It was, if you guys didn't get a chance to watch it, if you can only watch it in pieces, SmackDown was the show of the week. Adam and I, no doubt, will declare it that. And it was a nice refresh because it was new, it was fresh, and like I said, even the corny new music for the Pretty Deadly guy, my daughter Olivia was like,
Kip Williams?
Yeah, Kit Williams. They're like, why is he dressed like that? And it was actually a good story. I said, Baba, remember this guy, Matt Cardona, he used to be kind of like that guy, and then he left and he became a musclehead. And she's like, oh, that makes sense because this guy's dumb. And she knows at 11 years old, like that guy, that character's not going to go over. Like, and I said, that's what happened. I said, that big character, he used to be and dressed like that other guy, and he got pissed and he left for 5 years and he came back. And she's like, oh yeah, he wanted to be a bigger person and not look like that. She's like, that guy's stupid. and I was like, yeah, exactly. But Matt Cardona, I want to see what he does. It's awesome. I was just really thrilled because it was new and fresh, and there's a lot more ideas that come from it.
Yeah, look, I like the fact that Matt Cardona got to come back as Matt Cardona.
Yes.
Like that, I thought was great.
Yeah, you had to. You had to
see what they end up doing with Matt Cardona, because I feel like you've got Matt Cardona added in, you've got Trick Williams added in, Jordan Grace. Obviously, she's milling about, and we're waiting for her to basically say she's in.
Yeah. Bro, it's easy. It's easy.
I'm excited for where SmackDown is. This little revamp that they did. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, Matt Cardona should be the United States champion. That's a perfect title for him to feud with Carmelo, tell a story, and get a moment maybe at WrestleMania.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with him. Again, Trick Williams feels like a monster star. I think the other thing I took out of this program, which was absolutely fantastic, they gave the last 30, 35 minutes to Aleister Black and Damian Priest. They had an ambulance match. To me, I just want this feud to be over with.
Yeah,
felt like it's gone on for far too long. I think you could have made a more interesting story coming out of this, and you could have made Aleister Black feel like a bigger deal. Remember, Damian Priest is a former champion. You can always lean on that. You can always go back to that. I feel like if Aleister Black would have won this ambulance match, he'd have came out feeling like a bigger deal. For me, right now, Aleister Black feels the same as he's ever felt, which probably isn't very good. Feels the same as he felt when he was in WWE his first go round. Feels the same as he felt when he was in AEW. Feels the same as he did when he was AEW after all the rumors came out that he wanted his release and they didn't release him. Feels the same as he did when he first came back to WWE. He's just kind of a guy on the roster. Should Black have won this match? Would it have made him a little bit more impactful? Would it have been a nice build for him? Because I feel right now, Aleister Black is just Aleister Black.
Yeah, he is, but he decided to leave the company. So the homegrown guy gets the edge. And listen, Aleister Black is just one of those guys where wins and losses don't matter. The dude's interesting. And moving forward, I do think 2026 will be a nice year for him. I think that there's opportunities for him to move forward, to learn, to kind of use this as I was changed by this ambulance match and come back even stronger. But listen, you look at it from the other side, Damian Priest kind of had a little bit of a lull with the Judgment Day. Listen, in the end, I think that the categorical end of Edge with the Judgment Day killed the group. Like, the group's been there. It kicked off Liv and Dom, which was cool. It also gave a little bit more room for JD McDonough to showcase himself, but Finn Balor went backwards. The group members outside of Dom went backwards. And for Damian Priest, I think that if you just end the Judgment Day, it was what it was. Kick them forward, you'll get in the end, the essence of the group, which was, okay, we're a group of misfits, but that thing went on way too long without a whole lot of impact. So now, if you get a nice run for Finn Balor, JD McDonough is going to have another situation where he's got to come back from injury. That's fine. But Dom, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, you got to keep it moving, and you got to establish these people as stars. And I think that you have one in Damian Priest if you present them the right way.
Yeah, look, I feel like there's a lot there for Damian Priest. You just got to book him the right way.
Yes.
Same thing with Aleister Black, man.
Yes,
Aleister Black could be a bigger star.
Yes.
But I don't feel like you're booking him the right way. So there's a ton of stuff to do, and now it's going to get even more difficult because remember Trick Williams, you got Matt Cardona, you got all these new stars coming. It's new influx of talent. So the cream's going to rise to the top, like Macho Man used to say.
Remember our thesis from 2025. Aleister Black's getting a push, but it's not going to be until 2031. So just sit back and enjoy the ride of his 6 years of wrestling. They're like, oh, wait a minute. He's 40 now? Let's give him a push.
That's how WWE books you, man.
Right?
Marinate. It's like the Ken Holland theory of bringing up talent.
It takes 10 years to get a push. It takes 10 years. Ken Holland, what's wrong with everybody? Why is Adam saying on the podcast he wants a push? Everybody, knows that it takes a good 10 years to get over in WWE with Triple H.
Freaking bonkers, man. Absolutely nuts. Look, we both agree. SmackDown show of the week. Fantastic program. You get a chance, go check it out. You ready for some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
All right, so you're going to want to tune in on Monday, possibly, because we may be seeing this wrestler star very soon. Chris Jericho has not been seen on AEW television since May, and there's been a lot of rumors and speculation on when and where he will show up next. John Alba of Sports Illustrated may have some insight. In an update from Alba, it has been reported that Jericho's contract with AEW is set to expire on December 31st, which has elapsed, and WWE has discussed possibly debuting him on the January 5th episode of Raw in Brooklyn, as opposed to holding him off for the Royal Rumble in Riyadh. Remember, everybody who is supposed to be debuting at the Royal Rumble in Riyadh, because of customs issues and immigration issues, they're probably going to debut them all either that Monday or that Friday prior to the Royal Rumble. So don't expect too many big surprises at the Royal Rumble, because it's going to be difficult to get those people in the country. So they'll probably debut everybody a little bit earlier. Sports Illustrated noted that it had been independently confirmed to them by higher-ups in AEW that they are under the impression that Jericho is done with AEW and is set for a return to WWE. Now, a few WWE stars are dealing with some shoulder injuries. On Tuesday, Sheamus' wife took to Instagram to announce that he recently had shoulder surgery in Birmingham, Alabama. Also, Monday, it was announced that Dominic Mysterio was dealing with a shoulder injury sustained in his recent AAA match. Reports are Mysterio does not need surgery. Both men are expected to be away for some time to recover from these injuries. And finally, a few female wrestlers announced that 2026 will be the end of their wrestling career, at least their full-time wrestling career. Mercedes Martinez, you may remember her from her run in WWE. She's now in AEW. She said 2026 will be the end of her full-time wrestling career, as well as Madison Rayne, former TNA women's champ. She announced that 2026 will be the end of her wrestling career as well. And that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes, my brother.
Make sure you follow Adam on X at AdamRSTROZ. Tune in on Monday, Raw. It's supposed to be epic. Let's see. Braun Breaker, CM Punk. On Raw, they told the story. Let's see. I thought Braun Breaker and CM Punk had a nice promo. I thought that was a nice segment on Monday Night Raw. So, kicks off a new year. Triple H did great on SmackDown. Let's see if some new blood gets infused on Monday Night Raw, and I'm excited for it. Let's see what ends up happening if Mr. Chris Jericho does show up. I think it'll be a pop for the ages. It'll be a nice return. And pay attention, The Rock's name is surfacing just a little bit around these parts because those Saudis, they want to flash their cash. So we'll see as this new year kicks off. Kicked off with a bang, and just like WWE, TNA, AEW, the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast will continue to bring you banger after banger after banger. Thank you for listening. Make sure anywhere you listen to your favorite audio content, you type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you. Thank you for liking and subscribing, interacting, all the great messages, all the great trolling. It's a fun time now to be part of the Detroit sports community and to be voices in the internet wrestling community. I can't wait for next week when we fire it up again on the next episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.